Welcome, everybody, to another episode of MC Fireside Chats. My name is Brian Searl with Insider Perks. We are missing a bunch of people today. It feels like fall is when everything happens because people stop camping and then they start focusing on their businesses and all kinds of things happen. So we are missing Cara and Shane today, who are obviously Cara is our regular co-host. Shane normally is on the RV Industry Show from CRVA, Shane Devenish. They're both attending meetings today. We were supposed to have Kurt from National Park Traveler. Hopefully he'll pop his head in here. He didn't say he wasn't coming. And then we're missing Phil from RVDA as well. I feel like we haven't seen Phil in forever. This show maybe is a little bit cursed. We need to figure out how to convince some of these people to come back and but they're all very busy helping the industry, and we're super excited to see them continue to move forward. Welcome Eleanore back, a recurring guest. I haven't seen you in a few months, Eleanore.
No.
Thanks for joining us again. And we've got Larry Trout here from Toppers RVs, who's going to talk a little bit about his success. He's also on the board of RVDA Canada. And then we've got David Basler, who normally wouldn't be kind of a guest on our RV show, but super excited to have him here because there's something that's coming up in a couple weeks, and I can't remember what it is, but he'll probably fill us in and let us know what that is. So, Larry, do you want to introduce yourself real quick? Tell us a little about Toppers RVs, and then David, same thing.
Larry Trout, Toppers RVs, Toppers Camping Center formerly. My grandfather started the company in 1967. My dad bought in shortly after that, and he ran this thing for a while, and I'm third generation, so we're running and gunning. We actually just closed on some land a little further south, so we're gonna be expanding soon and hoping to open that one next year. It'll be our second location, so we're running and gunning. It's kind of real good to be in the RV industry right now, so we're happy about things.
Seems like it. We were talking about before the show aired that you are also on the board of RVDA. Are you a long-serving member?
Yep. I sit on the board for RVDA and actually our state association here in Texas. I sit on TRVA board as well. I am, I guess I'm going to be treasurer of RVDA, so I'll be jumping in line to be chairman here in a couple of years. So, yep, been on the board for 4 years now, 2018. So, it's getting in that room and being in those conversations is something special, man. Getting that group of people together with those minds and just being able to be a fly on the wall has been real special for me. It's helped me out, helped the growth of the company as well. It's invaluable to be in the room with those guys that have been in the industry that long and had way more success than I could ever dream of. So it's like I said, it's huge help for me. It's a selfish thing personally to be in that room, and then also just to help the industry as much as I can, because good competition is the best. It's the best way to create the growth in this industry. If we have bad competition, nothing gets done. So.
Yeah, you're not wrong. Like I've never had the pleasure of serving on a board, probably because I'm just too busy and doing 10,000 other things that never bothered to even run or inquire. But I did go to a CRVC meeting earlier this year. I think Eleanore was in that meeting too. And it just is amazing when you sit on, and regardless of what organization it is with the board, but all these smart people who are discussing all the things and moving the industry forward and just doing everything they can to put their heart and soul into making it better. So it's always amazing to be sitting in one of those rooms, even if I only get to sit there for a few minutes. So
Absolutely.
David, you want to introduce yourself real quick?
Yeah, sure. Hi, everybody. I am David Basler. I'm the Senior Vice President of Membership and Marketing for National RVIC, which stands for the National Association of RV Parks and Campgrounds. We are the national face of the outdoor hospitality industry and represent approximately 3,000 privately owned RV parks and campgrounds across the country. And as Brian alluded to at the start of the show, we've got our conference coming up, Outdoor Hospitality Conference and Expo 2022 down in Orlando the week of November 7th. So we're looking forward to that. That's the premier event of the industry that a lot of people will be at. So it's a great opportunity to see exhibitors at the expo, but also see your friends and your peers, every once a year. So it's always a fun time. We're looking forward to it.
I will lay claim to, again, being busy. So I did glance at the schedule, David, and I saw puppy cuddling. I'm assuming there's more going on than puppy cuddling that we'll have you talk about.
Is there more than puppies?
I'm going to come. So
no. Yeah, puppies were something that we started back in, was it 2019? I believe it was, in Knoxville, Tennessee, when we were there. And it was wildly popular. RV campground owners are a lot of them are dog people, and I had done this in a previous life, working for another association, and it was wildly popular there too. So we decided to start it, and then COVID happened, and but this year we're partnered with an animal shelter in the Orlando area. They're bringing lots of puppies, and it basically is a come and have fun with puppies event, but it also is an opportunity to adopt one of these cuties if someone so wants to do. So I just have to hold back because I'm the type of person who wants to adopt all of them when I come to an event like that. So but we're looking forward to it. Yeah, and the puppies are going to be there twice. They're going to be on Tuesday from 4 to 6 over at the hotel that we're at, the Rosen Center, and then on Thursday during the expo from 9:30 to 12:30, and it's sponsored by our partners at RV Share. So
awesome. So
but yes, there's a lot more going on than puppies.
Yeah, we're going to talk about it. I promise. We didn't just bring you on to talk about puppies. Eleanore and Larry, do we have puppies at the RVDA show too?
No, but I think I'd be like David. It would be dangerous because I'd want to take them all back with me. And I do know obviously pets in the RV industry are huge. I mean, both from the operators, campground operators. Our current chair, José Bédard, out of Quebec City, she brings her dog to the dealership every single day, and he walks around and he's there, and the customers are always like, "Oh, hey, where's Winston? We want to see Winston." So it's definitely part of the whole industry, sort of indirectly.
Winston's the mascot.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, right. So
awesome.
I like the idea, but I really like the idea. So unfortunately, our convention is at the same time. It's in Las Vegas the week of November 7th. Otherwise, I'd be probably scooting down to Orlando to have a bit of time with those little puppies.
Eleanore, I'm happy to talk to you afterwards and let you know how we work it if it's something you guys want to start at RVDA.
Well, and David, now, if you need record attendance in 2023, you can up it by 1 by changing the dates, and Eleanore will come just to see the puppies. So you've got guaranteed.
There you go.
Yep, that's your way in right there.
There you go.
So let's start with Larry. Eleanore, is there anything on your plate that you feel like we should talk about before we kind of kick it to Larry for a minute? And I'm going to start with him.
Yeah, no, I mean, you can take it over to Larry. I mean, it's lots of insights. I have to say that, when I attend their board meetings, I know Larry mentioned that he gets a lot from the group. Larry's a great contributor too. Always some really creative ideas. No, I'm serious. It's always really refreshing kind of, on the demographic side, we've got sort of the full scale. So really bringing some great new ideas and refreshing ideas to the board. And, it is hard to find sometimes volunteers to sit on our boards. So it's great to have people that I thank you for saying what you did, because it's one thing to participate and and get information, but we just really need volunteers that will sit in and give creative ideas. Over to you, Larry.
So Larry, I know obviously Toppers RVs, you introduced yourself, all that kind of stuff, and you sit on the RVDA board. It's really interesting to me because we started the show focused, and this has been my background, right, for 10, 15 years in the outdoor hospitality industry, working with campgrounds and RV parks and marketing, and more recently with Modern Campground. And so for me, I'm kind of a newbie, if you will, to the RV industry itself. And I don't think, Eleanore, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think we've ever had a dealer on the show. Like, we've had bloggers, we've had obviously executives, but this is the first actual dealer, yeah, that you can remember?
I think so, yeah, at least when in the time that I've been on.
So it's interesting to me, and I want to just back up and maybe start from a 30,000-foot view, Larry, if you're willing. We have a lot of owners and operators and vendors and suppliers who watch this show and maybe who aren't too familiar with how, obviously, what an RV dealer is. They know that, but how it kind of integrates with the whole outdoor hospitality ecosystem. So how do you kind of see your role in that journey of the customer?
Well, I guess it would be boots on the ground, right? What we do here is we consider ourselves like an entry-level dealer, right? So we still have pop-ups and stuff like that. I would say, even our tagline is where your outdoor life begins. So that's huge for us. It's getting people into camping, which is obviously COVID kind of put that on steroids, and it's been a great ride for the last 3 years. I think getting that new demographic, which is mine. I'm 38, you know, and what we're doing in my demographic is we're getting our second biggest purchase of our lives knocked out, right? So, you know, we've gotten our house going, we got our families going. Now we're getting interested in something else. What's going to be our hobby? What's that going to be? You know, is it camping? Is it something else? Is it something else that involves an RV? You know, is it hunting? Is it whatever? And that's what's happening a lot. You know, I think in a lot of these manufacturers have been able to adapt to it and help us out to get this new demographic in without having to buy so much stuff to get onto a trailer or into the campground. You know, they can camp with a V6 vehicle or a smaller SUV or something like that. You know, it's more all inclusive than it's ever been. You know, people used to think it wasn't all inclusive. You had to be old, you had to have a lot of money and all this stuff. It's actually cheaper, man. It really is a cheaper way to travel. It's a fun way to travel. And then, you know, obviously you get to the campgrounds, you're going to have a lot of fun there. You're going to meet new people there. You're going to have, you know, all the stuff that goes along with that and the resorts. And if you just want to go to a nice scenic one, you can do that too. So it's, you know, I don't know if I'm actually answering your question. I'm just kind of rambling, it feels like to me, but
it's all I do all the shows anyway. So you fit right in.
Right. So it's boots on the ground for us, you know, getting people involved, getting them excited about camping and wanting to do it, and then hoping that they come back and get their next trailer here, you know, and then keeping them going. That's the main focus for us, is keeping everybody happy in camping.
So do you think there's, and I just kind of asked this question just because of the people we have here, right? And Eleanore, obviously you can pop into this, and same thing with David. What does the interplay look like? And maybe from you, David, too, since he's on RVDA in Houston, but just what's the interplay look like between associations? How does RVDA, how does RVIC, how does RVDA of Canada, and lots of people are crossing the border and going both places, right? What's that interplay look like to make sure that the customer journey is taken care of through the whole process?
Yeah, it's a lot of us just being focused on the same task. You know, that's what those board meetings are so good about. You know, Eleanore and I get to sit in the same room and all that. And it's, I guess, making sure that, you know, the service side of things, we're really working hard on rec right now. That would be a really good one that's shared throughout the whole, whatever you want to call it, through every country and all that stuff, as long as it's over here. But it's just getting everybody on the same page and making sure that the dealers are doing what they need to do and making sure they're doing the right thing. That's really the focus. And there's so many dealers out there that just throw up a dealership, sell you a trailer, and then they're gone in 2 years, right? And that's what we don't want. We want dealers to come in, do it the right way, come get involved. You know, you're going to have to spend a little money, but it's going to come back to you later. And it's just learning how to properly handle a customer and properly deal a trailer to a customer. I think that's the biggest focus we have. And then after that is taking care of the customer properly and updating the RV industry, getting us into the current times. You know, I'd say, Eleanore, we're probably 10, 15, maybe 20 years behind some of these industries as far as auto and boat and stuff like that. So it's just updating them and getting them to understand, you know, what we need, what they need, what the customers want. So for me, it's all of us getting on the same page for those things.
And so I guess where I was kind of maybe going, and you did answer part of my question, but like, so you talked about focusing on the customer experience, right? Both before and after they purchase the RV a little bit. Is there communication between like local area campgrounds, or like David works for the Campground Owners Association, or to kind of shape that? We talked about making sure they're happy, making sure they're staying RVing, right?
Right.
To keep them, because if you can't go camping and you don't have a good experience at a campground, then that's going to unfairly, to a certain extent, but impact your perception of the RV industry.
Right, absolutely. Hey, I would say that's an individual thing, right? Dealers communicate on their own. I wouldn't say nationally we don't really have a thing set up. KOA is really involved at RVDA, I know that, but it's not. I wouldn't say it's like a cumulative effort to drive people to certain campgrounds or anything like that. It's just if you know a campground wants to sponsor something, or we want to do something at a campground, that type of deal, and then you know it's like the state of Texas, they send out a state park map, so we get loads of those, and we give one of those to every customer. We promote the state parks because they're putting Wi-Fi in all of those. We promote the hell out of those, so that's kind of how we do it. But it's not. There's no cumulative effort. There needs to be one, obviously. So that's something else we're working for. That's just added to the list. So you know, it's but it's been an interesting ride, and that's something that I'm looking into, because a lot of RV dealers are wanting to get into campgrounds too. I'm not looking to put in a campground, but I'm looking at how it all works and how these people are doing it. So
awesome. David, do you have any thoughts on that?
Well, I was going to say our goal as associations is to better make our members as businesses as best as they possibly can be, right? That's our number one goal. And they grow when there are more people camping and enjoying the outdoors. And so I continue to always come back to the experience. It is all about the customer experience. And any opportunity that associations have to work together is a good thing for not only the industry, but for the individual campgrounds. There is a lot to be said for the local direction that Larry was just talking about. But from a national perspective, I think there are things that we can definitely do as associations to drive business for individual campgrounds, individual dealers, whatever it might be. And I think that's the purpose of a strong national association.
All right, sorry, I didn't mean to put you on the spot. We weren't normally talking about that, but that was a really good answer.
That's okay.
So, yeah,
that's all right.
I seem to be like washed out here because of the sun, so that'll be interesting. I'll probably look pretty.
You have a little glare there.
So Larry, I wanted to come back to you, just finish with you for a second. So I'm curious, we talked about, we talked about this as guests in the past, right? Obviously the pandemic has impacted significantly interest in RVs, probably one of the few positive things that would come out of that experience, right? Is more interest in outdoor hospitality, more people buying RVs, more people camping in general. Is there anything that you think has changed from the dealer perspective that maybe you'll keep around? Like something good that came out of COVID, either a process or the way you stock things or how you communicate with customers that maybe will serve as a long-lasting kind of good thing for dealers?
Well, so it's more of an actual dealership perspective or a dealer perspective. Yeah. It's really not how we handle things externally with the customers, with the retail public, but like internally, it's good dealers did it really good, right? And they sold a lot of trailers and they were able to restock, right? It made bad dealers look good for a year, and then they had to learn how to stock properly without getting overstocked, right? So that's kind of where we're at now. The industry, the industry demand was outpacing production for so long that, we were all telling manufacturers, you're going to get caught up. You got to slow down. You got to slow down. And then here we are, bam. So now we're slammed, right? Everybody's got inventory. Well, during COVID, all RV dealers down here in the lower in the United States, every single RV dealer ran out of RVs. Not at the same time, but you probably, if you were a dealer during COVID and you didn't run out of inventory at least 2 or 3 times, that was very unusual, right? Like we all literally had no trailers on the ground. So we had to go from that to learning how to get as many trailers as we could to get these people camping, because everybody wanted to go camping, to slowing the pace down, to helping the manufacturers understand that demand is slowing down, but it's not coming to a halt, So it's like, it's been a really weird ebb and flow of controlling inventory and controlling expectations, because you can get certain brands that have way longer lead times than other brands, like Rockwood. It might take me 8 weeks to get a Rockwood, where it takes me 3 weeks to get a Crusader or something like that, So same with like motorhomes, like a Tiffin motorhome. Put your name on the list and forget about it for a year. You're not going to get that forever. Holiday Rambler, I can get one in like 4 months. So it's been weird with the supply chain and stuff like that. I think learning those situations have been the biggest thing for us. But like for the public, going back to what I said, has been the introduction of a new demographic to our industry is the guys my age, people my age and younger, from 25, 27 to 35, 37, whatever it is. But getting that new demographic is really what expanded our industry. And it really hadn't expanded, the overall industry hadn't expanded up until 2014, 2015. And that's when it really started to happen and we were hitting this growth. But if you look at it, you go back, 2007 was our best year. We only had 8 million homes in the United States that had RVs, right? Now we're up to about 12 million, 11 right there in the United States, households that have RVs. Well, we've got a population of 300 something million, whatever it is, you cut that in half, call it all couples, you got 100 something, just do some percentages. We got a lot more room to go here, man. If we get into 20 million homes, that's what's going to happen, so it's controlling all of that and educating the public and then trying to figure out how to get these people trailers when they want them.
So I've got a question on, you were talking about the differences in wait times for some of these due to supply chain primarily, right? Because I'm assuming pre-pandemic it was kind of even for most people. Like you could basically pick and choose.
There's always some that have, they're more popular than others. They don't produce as much as others. There's always some that'll have longer wait times, but it wasn't out of hand. I had an uncle that bought a Sunseeker Class C motorhome, and he ordered it January, and we just delivered it to him 3 weeks ago. So it's still happening, right? But it just depends on what brand it is and how popular that brand is public. And that's also created lesser manufacturers are getting deals because they don't want to wait. So it's kind of figuring out who's going to stay around and who's going to be gone in a couple of years, I guess, in other words, or get bought up, because they're all going to get bought up by Thor and Forest River anyway.
So I'm curious, and this maybe is an ignorant question coming from somebody outside of the dealer space, right? But and say what you want. I don't want to give away any trade secrets, right? But maybe Eleanor can jump in on this too. When you're looking at it from a dealer perspective, as far as what you decide to stock first on your dealer lot, and then maybe again, Eleanor, if you want to chime in, if you know any comments or anything. I'm just curious, how is it determined? Is it supply chain? Is it what you sold before? Because there's so many new RVs coming out, so many different models. How do you know what's going to sell? How do you know what isn't? How do you? You've only got so much inventory or space you can put on your specific dealer lot. So how does that?
Absolutely, yeah. And in Houston, it's magnified by 10, right? Because it's probably the second most competitive market in the nation compared to Los Angeles, probably. And what we have here is our franchise laws are so tight. So like what you carry here in Harris County is the biggest county in Texas too, where Houston is, and what we carry here, nobody else in Harris County can carry. So our franchise laws are real tight. So as far as brands, we won't really have many options, because once something comes available, we're all like vultures on it. So really the manufacturer gets to pick who they want to go to. Okay. So it's tough to break into the Houston market, right? Lazy Days is trying it right now. They're right next to me, actually. They got a couple brands finally, and we'll see how they keep going. But I welcome that. I want them to come in. I like the competition. So, but no, it's as far as floor plans is probably the easier way to put it. A double over double bunk is going to be hot anywhere in the nation. That's always going to work. A couple's rear living is always going to work. A front kitchen is always going to work. Those are just staple floor plans. Rear livings, big windows, stuff like that. Rear kitchens, those are all going to be popular and staples. The ones that step out there and try and do different things, put in a walk-in pantry or something like that, it's just a very generic example, but the ones that try and do that, those are the ones that are guesses, right? We're just guessing on those if it's going to work. Like a mid-bunk fifth wheel, we all thought that was really cool when it first came out. We didn't know if it was going to stick, and here it is. That's kind of more of a staple floor plan now with the mid-bunk fifth wheel. So as far as like being able to plan it out on my end, I can't do the floor plans anymore. It's just too tough for me. I do numbers mainly. I got a sales manager at GSM, Tony. He does really, really well. He keeps his feet on the ground, boots on the ground and on the pulse there, and knows what the floor plans are. But it's demographic heavy. I mean, and it's market specific, right? And it's really within the market. Like I'm going to sell, when I open the other dealership, I'll have to stock different stuff compared to this dealership, and they're 60 miles apart. So it's totally like I got farmers out here. I'm going to be more of an inner city crowd down there. So it's going to be a learning experience for us. It's really a shot in the dark. We plan these things out. We just got back from open house. We try and plan them out to do the whole year, right? But it's tough because you get 4 of one floor plan. You only sell 3 of them. You get stuck with that one until 300 days later. You finally get rid of that one. That gives you a sour taste in your mouth. That might be the hot floor plan for next year, and you'll miss 3 months of selling season on that one floor plan because you got a sour taste in it because it sat around. But then you go 30 miles down the road, the other guy, he has 5 of them and couldn't get rid of any of them. So it's really hard to answer that question as far as, how we order, what we order. It's more your dealership and what you think you're going to move. But it's a guessing game, to be honest with you. Nobody can tell you, I know I'm going to sell 20 of these. you probably sell 15 of them if you think that, and then we stuck with 5. So
mindset, yeah. But yeah, I definitely don't envy you. It sounds way more complicated than I have bravery enough to do. And I feel like do you think it's
liability, yeah.
Do you think it's going to get more complex as we make a shift to electric, or because that's more guessing, right?
Not really. We're already doing it. These things are already set up for it, right? The older guys, and Eleanore, you can probably back me up on this one. The older guys, the older dealers, they used to be bad mouthing electric trucks and electric anything. It's like, man, we can't do that. It's like, no, guys, you got to have this. This is not the mindset. No blocks, no speed bumps, right? This is where it's going, right? We're going to have a truck that's going to be able to pull a 10,000-pound RV 5 hours without charging eventually, right? It might be 10 years from now, but we will have it, right? That's the problem they have right now is they can't pull RVs with the right, I think 100 miles is the longest one that Ford can do. But as far as the RV itself, they're already prepped for it, man. They're already ready. They're putting solar panels on these things. They're putting lithium batteries on these things now. Of course, lithium batteries are expensive, so it's just if you want to pay that. But the RV industry was adapted before they knew they were adapted, right? And the manufacturers just kind of got lucky with it, I can tell you that, right? And then it was just easy to put these wires through the trailer and then have the solar panels on the roof or wherever they want to put them. So they're there right now. You can do it with these big motorhomes. You can add the weight to them, put a whole bunch like a bank of lithium batteries and try and run them, and run air conditioners on them. And it's just, I think it's been interesting to watch the manufacturers go through this, see what's happening, try and react to it, miss the buck, come back around, and then do it better the second time. Because they tried 3 or 4 years ago and it just didn't work out. Nobody caught on to it. Now they're catching on to it because it's the new fad, I guess.
Well, it's interesting how the timing works in the interplay between everything, because it's all education, right? It's consumers reading about, like you said, not even RVs, but just electric vehicles in general. And then it piques their interest with other verticals. And then they wonder what can change in the RV industry. And obviously the drivable ones are coming along. And then we've got, new innovations like the Cybertruck and all that kind of stuff. But it's not just from a dealer or an industry perspective. It's also from a campground perspective. And I know I'm going to use this as a brief segue here, unless you have something else to add, Eleanor.
Right.
But to David, who's doing, you're doing another electric vehicle panel at RVIC. So do you want to just briefly, I think you are anyway. Again,
a couple of them actually.
I'll be cuddling. So, but electric vehicles. So if you just do you want to talk a little bit about that, your thoughts on what Larry said, and then maybe a little bit more about your education?
Yeah, we're actually doing 2 panels on various EV topics, and they're really driven. The first one is really driven by the future of what's going to be coming into campgrounds, which is kind of a build off of what we did at conference last year. But just like with every technology, a lot has changed in the last 12 months. So it's important to have that conversation again. And we've got some new panelists, new ideas to discuss. The second one that we're doing is centered around an EV toolkit that we're getting ready to launch that is really focused on helping the campground prepare and get ready for, like Larry said, it may not be happening in your area right now, but 10 years from now, it's going to be happening. And the sooner that you prepare for it, the better you are. And some campgrounds are more progressive on this issue. I know of some who are putting EV chargers at every site that they have. That's not going to work necessarily for every campground, right? Every campground is different, and you have to, as a campground owner, you have to decide what is right for my audience right now, and what can I potentially scale up to as I see more and more EVs entering my campground. What you don't want to do is be stuck in a situation where you haven't done anything and all of a sudden EVs start coming into your campground and charging in ways that you don't want them to charge. One of the things that we're seeing even right now is, someone pulls in with a Class A or whatever it might be, and they might be pulling a Tesla behind them, or maybe a partner is driving the Tesla separate, and they come in, and what they're doing now is they're charging both of them on the same pedestal, which not only is not good for the cars and the campground. I mean, it's a fire hazard, right?
Yep.
And
Yep.
it also, on top of all those issues, it's also charging the campground owner a ridiculous amount of money, because a Tesla, you can see it when you look at a metering. You look at a company that, like Wild Energy, for instance, that meters pedestals, where campground owners can see how much juice is being pulled from a particular pedestal, right? And you watch these charts that campground owners can see from an app or from their computer, and you watch the line go when the RV is charging, and as soon as they plug in that Tesla, it goes through the roof and it stays there for 12 hours. So you might be selling that camper, that site for, $65 a night, and 50 of it's going to pay the electricity bill, and you're losing.
We've had Mike on the show before. He's talked about that, and I think we had Mayor Harpinez who was talking about, I think last week or maybe 2 weeks ago, who was talking about he put the electric pedestals in all his sites. So yeah, you're right. It's a one size fits all, or not? Excuse me, it's not a one size fits all.
It's not a one size fits all. That's right.
And everybody's different, but they do need to pay attention to it. Like I feel like, and I'm really hopeful, David. I'm trying to be hopeful and believe in all the park owners, and some will do it great, of course. But I feel like we're going to have the same session at ARVC 10 years from now, kind of like we did with Wi-Fi. And we're still going to be telling people the same things that we're about to tell people in 2.5 weeks. And the 30 to 40% of the progressive, really like go-getter people are going to have the EV chargers. And the rest, we're going to have to keep telling that they should have.
Well, so here's the way I would approach that, because I somewhat agree with you. I think this is going to be an ongoing conversation. And it largely is because of the technology expansion that we're going to see in the next 10, 12, 20 years. But comparing it to Wi-Fi, when we were having those conversations, Wi-Fi was seen at that time as an amenity, right? And that's not the case anymore. Wi-Fi is a utility now. Any campground owner, most will tell you that. The Wi-Fi companies will tell you that. I mean, it's the camp.
But we've also been saying that for like 6 years at ARVC and KOA, right? We've been saying it's a utility, and they still don't want to put it in. But anyway, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
But again, I would say that, every campground is different, and every campground owner is different. And our job as an association is not to tell them, that it's an amenity or a utility. That's their business. That's their decision to make. But what we can do is say, look, this is what the expectation is from your audience, the camping consumer across the board, across the country. And they're going to be showing up at your park wanting Wi-Fi as a utility. In 5 years from now, I think we can probably look back on this just like we did with Wi-Fi and say that EV charging was an amenity today, but 5-10 years from now, it's going to be a utility too, because the majority of cars on the road are going to be EVs, and a good chunk, I would think, of RVs are going to be electric at that point. It's a changing world,
For sure, and I can't wait to see how technology adapts to it. I think we were talking when David was on the show about like concrete pads just built in, like when they scaled the wireless charging for your phone. Let's just scale it up, pull the car onto the pad, and then your concrete pad can charge overnight wirelessly. So
how cool is that?
The way that is,
like a phone charging pad, yeah.
I mean, I don't know that exists or can ever exist. It just pops out of my head. I say these random things that sometimes are nonsensical. But so talk to us about the rest of your education. Let's switch from EV. You got a huge slate of stuff going on, right?
We do, and we got a lot of fun too. We always bring the fun at OHCE. I'll start with the fun. How about that? We've got kicking off the week at Margaritaville. We rented out the space at Universal City Walk, and it's a Jimmy Buffett themed networking party to kick it off. And we've got a lot of great activities happening there with our sponsors, which are RMS, Firefly Reservations, RV Share, and Blue Water. And that's going to be a blast. And then on Tuesday night, we've got a networking reception poolside at the Rosen, which is 80s themed, and everybody's coming in their 80s gear, which is going to be fun. We've got an 80s band playing. That's going to be a blast as well. That's sponsored by Spot tonight. And in between, we've got lots of education, and it ranges from those panels we were just talking about with the EV. We've got a panel on our generational camping report year 2, which is going to be a good one. And then I think we've got something like 30 different breakout sessions leading up to the expo that folks can go to.
So how do you?
Lots of great education.
Please, I apologize.
No, go for it.
I'm just going to ask, how do you decide? So same question I kind of asked the dealers, right? With inventory, how do you decide what to teach at ARVC every year? And I know that's some part Susan in your team, and it's not just a David thing, right? But how does ARVC?
It's definitely not a David thing. It's a collective effort with kind of a multi-faceted approach. We put out a call for proposals, obviously, and people submit sessions, but we also are constantly talking to members. We're on social media. We're polling the audience of our board. We're talking to state executives, and it's keeping, just like a national association should do, keeping our finger on the pulse of what the hot topics are in the industry, and then formulating education sessions around those topics to try to help our members succeed. And it's a long process. It's not something that happens overnight, obviously. And there's always the fun of it is there's always something that from the beginning to the launch of the show. Eleanore, you can probably attest to this too, that there's something that is bound to change throughout that, and you have to adjust on the fly, right? So that's the fun thing about our industry. There's always something new happening. So we try to make the sessions as relevant as possible because of that.
And it is an interesting dynamic because there's only so much time. There's only so many days. There's only so many. Like I know this because I helped plan a couple of the Canadian Association shows too. It's always, what is the interest? Who's proposing? Who can speak? Who can come? What is the interest from my members? Then you find out, well, I've got 7 too many sessions. So what gets chopped, right? What's least important or 1% less important? And so I'm sure I can't even imagine. Like I wouldn't want to do it. I mean, I guess I did do it, but
it's always a challenge. It's always a challenge. And the other thing you have to look at too is you don't want the same speakers and the same topics showing up regularly, right? You want new, fresh content, which there never seems to be a lack of in our industry because it's always changing and there's always new players in various topics and whatnot. So never seem to have too much of a problem with that.
How does RVDA handle this in Las Vegas?
Yeah, it's kind of similar. I mean, we, essentially the convention will be in a week and a half, and literally the week after, the next 2 weeks, we start planning for the following year. We do a variety of different things. So we, first of all, take evaluations, both on site and afterwards as well from the participants. So to gauge which were the speakers, what were the highlights. So we use that as historical. We have some historical data. And then we have, our respective boards meet and we talk about burning dealer issues, like what do we need to address? And then there's a convention committee that actually, gives feedback and reviews. And then we send out the RFPs. That'll be in February, March to speakers. And then we go through and everybody grades the speakers and ranks them. It's really quite an in-depth process. And then, you hope that the ones that are ranked at the highest are still available. And then you start trying to slot them in. So it really is it's a cycle. It's a year-long process just to put this on for the convention. But we hope that, like David said, we have about 40% of new speakers this year. So it's always that fine balance as well, right? Because you've got some speakers that are very popular that everyone wants to see every year, but you also don't want, the topics to become stale. So we're always trying to incorporate some new. We used to have just a sales track. Now we've broken out. We have a whole digital marketing track that's on its own, which is, yes, sales focused, but it's really quite different than the traditional, I guess, sales track that we had in there. What we found too this past year is because because there's consolidation, right, in the industry. I'm assuming it's the same on the campground side. You have some dealership groups that are getting larger. And so the way we looked at the convention 10 years ago, which was really focused on all the tracks were educational. Now, some of these dealership groups, their needs are a little bit different than what they would have been in the past, because they can potentially put on their own educational sessions. So what's really of interest to them is the networking, is the sort of the dealer general manager, almost more like opportunities to meet with their suppliers, with their manufacturers, kind of like what we used to see in Louisville, with Louisville being gone by the wayside, the RVIA show. This is an opportunity for us to facilitate some of those discussions, in terms of making sure that we've got a little bit of something for everyone, right? So that's been one of the challenges over the last couple of years.
I think what you say is really fascinating to me too, because I was at the glamping show a couple of weeks ago, and we talked about this, with Ruben and a few of the other people who we had on after the show. But there's 1,400 people who showed up at the glamping show. And, I think 77 different vendors outside who just had the tents and structures from 37 different countries. But the education was a little bit lighter than it had been the year before. And it was based, I think, for the most part, on feedback of we want something a little bit more narrow and topical and focused. And so they did cool things like off-grid solutions and stuff like that. But it wasn't education heavy. Most people there were for the expo and for networking. And it was great. They were all standing outside talking to each other nonstop, but there was less classes kind of interfering with that. And I think that's probably coming from the same mindset that you're talking about, Eleanor, just adapting.
Yeah, well, it's adapting, right? It's I think we still have about the same amount of educational courses, but sometimes they're repeated. And actually, what we have now as well, which is new. I mean, this came out of COVID. You talked about earlier, how did dealers adapt and what did they learn? Well, what we did is obviously in 2020, we couldn't have the convention in person. So we went to a virtual convention, and now we still maintain that platform. So the nice thing is that people will be able to have access to some of that content in a virtual space following the convention. And some of the speakers are adding to that. So there's some really interesting new opportunities that will continue to develop as technology evolves as well.
That was one of my main things when I joined the board. Honestly, I don't know how I got on the board, because my first comments were, the convention's boring. So that was the whole thing. I said, guys, you got to network more. I said, look, I'm your prime, like what you're going after, my size dealership, my location, all that stuff, right? I'm not bringing 12 people to the convention. It's not going to happen. If I have 3 people away from my dealership, that's too many for me to even run the dealership, right? I have 25 employees at this one. If I miss 4 of them, we're in a bind. We got, I'm covering the parts desk or something like that, So that's not going to happen. And then the other thing I was eye-opening for them when I said, look, we're not waiting for November to go talk to a vendor to get their training or to sign up with, World of Training or whoever it might be, right? We're not going to wait until Vegas. If I need something in October, if I need something in January, I'm going to do it in January. I'm not going to wait until November. And all this stuff for 6 months is just stewing. Why wait? I need immediate gratification. So that was what spurred the, obviously, COVID, but that we were talking about the online stuff before COVID, really, we were. And it was getting more. Their drive was, how do we get more attendance? How do we get more attendance? How do we get more attendance? It's like, man, that's the wrong focus. It needs to, how do we make this fun to get more attendance out of it being fun, right? Not, let's just have the same seminars. Let's stand around a circle table, no music, and let's maybe have some beers in there, and maybe people will talk, right? I was telling them, here's another eye opener for you guys. My buddies and I would rather go buy bottle service at a club in Vegas than stand in your reception that we know we have to help pay for. We'd rather go pay for bottle service outside the convention than stand in your little room without any music and all that. I said, you guys got to make it fun. We got to make it all inclusive, right? You got to turn the online thing on and keep it on. The first time they did, they only kept it on for like 2 weeks, right? It was really weird. So now it's on for a couple months. I think we got it on for like 90 days or something like that. But that's been the focus is adapting. Like I'm sending me, the owner, my general manager, and that's probably it.
And I think it's adapting. it's everything, right? And everybody's audience is different. RVIC's adapting to something different than RVDA is, than RVIA is, than the glamping show is, than whatever is, right? All based on your audience. And then within that, there's obviously, you know, what, David, 1,000 people are expected at RVIC-ish? I don't know if you want to divulge your number.
Well, I can't divulge a number at this point exactly until we're
but lots of people
conference, but it's usually well more than 1,000. Yes.
Yeah. So, I mean, and within that group of all those people who both attend RVDA and go to RVIC and go to the glamping show, like Larry's saying, there's niches of people. Some want it virtual and some want it online so they can see it afterwards. And some just don't have the time to fly because they're missing a parts test guy right. And so it's catering to kind of all those niches, which is really, it's a constant adaptation process, which really fascinates me.
But when you do it, you create more attendance. Yeah.
Yeah. And so
I was going to say, I agree with Larry on the fun aspect too, because especially for campground owners, after a long summer of running a campground, they want a little fun, you know? And that was one of the biggest pieces of feedback I remember from our last couple of live shows is, you know, bring the fun. And so we've brought the fun the last couple of years, and it's shown in the attendance, just like Larry's suggesting there.
Yeah, and then like Larry was saying about the, you know, wait to 6 months, and I've got some interesting pink thing on my face, which is a reflection. I don't know if that's actually coming through. It's really interesting.
Nice,
so I'll get up and close the blind in a second, but for now it's blocking me. And again, the show's better if I'm hidden. So, but it's interesting to me. You say wait the 6 months too, because that's kind of something that we've brought up to some associations too, and that some associations have pointed out to us. I think it's greatly dependent on what you're selling though, and what you're buying. And so if you look at, like me, for example, I'm Insider Perks. We do marketing for a couple hundred campgrounds. Like, they're signing up all year with us. When they do marketing, they're coming to do marketing. They're not waiting for a trade show. Same thing with CampSpot, who I'm picking on CampSpot here because they are the sponsor of our show, and I keep forgetting to mention them. So thank you, CampSpot. I know they're a sponsor of your expo too, right, David?
They are.
Looking forward to seeing them there. But, you know, and it's different when we talked about the glamping show, with all the yurts set up outside the tents. And I'm sure, David, you're going to have some of that at your expo too, where kind of like and it's the same with RV dealers or RV shows. You want to walk through them and get a feel and a sense for them and see how you fit and see how you can wiggle between the bunks and mess around with the different floor plans. So it depends on what you're buying too. I think changes that mindset. But David, do you want a good segue to your little expo? Do you want to talk about that? Or not your little expo, I should say, your big expo.
The biggest of the expos. And one of the things I would add on to that, what you just said, Brian, is not only can they walk through and you kick the tires, if you will, but at an expo like ours, anyway, there's a variety that hits all sorts of campgrounds, right? So there's more park models this year than we've ever had, for instance. Park models are always popular, but there's also all of the glamping style, like safari tents and more non-traditional accommodations that you'll be able to walk through. And you can't do that from an online experience, right? We lived through it with COVID and it worked, but the ability to go and actually walk through, like you're saying, is invaluable. And one of the things that makes OHCE unique, I think, is our hosted buyer program as well, which ties in with the expo. You have the ability as a campground owner, operator, to manager to come as a hosted buyer and meet one-on-one with exhibitors of your choice. So you have that opportunity to have a intimate conversation rather than just stopping by their booth and potentially being involved in multiple conversations. It's you and the exhibitor talking about what your needs are for the park. And it's been wildly popular. This is year 3 for us. We started it in the virtual setting, but the in-person hosted buyer has been really popular for that reason, because you have the ability to sit down one-on-one. And the cool part from a financial standpoint is you participate in that program, you meet with 6 exhibitors, and we give you your registration fee back. So it saves everybody the registration fee that participates. So we're almost actually to capacity on that. There's a limit on how many hosted buyers can participate, and we're almost there. I think we've got like 5 spots left. So
That's awesome. So
It'll be full by the time we get there.
You said park models. What do you consider a park model?
A park model RV. I assumed that was
Not like a tiny
an
home,
industry
right?
term.
Like an actual. Yeah.
Let's hope
Not like
not.
not like a tiny home. We don't do
Right.
tiny homes. I'm talking
we're
like
not
Navico.
starting that discussion on this
No.
show. That's a big
I'm
can of
talking-
worms.
This is a selfish business question on my end. So
I'm talking seal of approval park models built by the major companies, Cavco, Green River, Lakeside, Champion.
Yeah. Plumbed like a. I got you.
Yep. Oh yeah. And we've historically, in my time with ARVC, we've had, I think our biggest year with park models was 5 or 6 park models. This year we have 8. So it's really, it's a great year to come and kick the tires, as they say.
I see them creeping up in the stats every month, and it's just something that has never been out there. You know, we have longer travel trailers that have, you know, I got one park model on my lot that's been here for about 150 days. I'm about ready to get rid of it, but it's one of those things. We tried it. We don't have it, man. I think it's an area thing. Yeah,
reach out to some campgrounds in your area. And if I talk to anybody at a conference from Houston, I'll let them know to reach out to you, because campground owners that I've talked to love them.
And they're buying them and renting them out. Is that what they're doing?
Oh yeah. They love them, and usually the return on investment on them is only a couple of years usually. So it's
because if you refinance it, your monthly payment's hardly anything really.
Yeah.
So
campground, I've seen a lot of this over the last the 4 years that I've been with ARVC. I've talked to a lot of campground owners about park models, and I can't tell you how many times I've heard the same thing basically, which is, I was against them for the longest time. I didn't want them on my campground. And then I got one and I saw how much money I could make off of them. And then I got 2 and now I've got 30. It's like,
right. No, I understand.
So this is something that interests me, and Eleanor and Larry, maybe you can comment on this. It's again, another probably ignorant question, but like for me, when I'm talking to most of these park model, glamping, cabin manufacturers, most campground owners I know are going direct to them. So is there a reason that it's beneficial to, like, do multiple RV dealers do this, Eleanor? And is this a pivot to diversify?
Well, a lot of dealers sell park models in Canada for sure.
Okay.
I mean, there are some larger campgrounds that will go direct to the manufacturer, but again, it's still an RV, and in Canada, the park models had to be built to a specific standard, Z241. So it's a park model standard, and again, there's going to be servicing, right? Like in terms of same as a travel trailer. So if campgrounds don't have techs or a relationship with a dealership, sometimes that can get complicated. So I think in Canada, the majority of a lot of the park models are still sold through dealerships or some of the larger campground groups, like you'll have Park Bridge, who owns many properties. So they would probably go direct to a manufacturer and have a specific manufacturer make the units for their campgrounds.
So is this the same? And I feel like maybe it's just a terminology thing. Is a park model the same as like what General Coach would build, or is it different?
Yeah.
Okay.
So General Coach in Canada, Northlander, they build to the Z241. Now in the US, I don't know, there's a different standard as well. It's not the NFPA 1192. I think it's a different standard, but it's similar kind of thing.
The plumbing is the main difference. It's either RV plumbing or actually plumbed like a residential house. But
you're just stocking the straight up park models. You're not stocking like cabins and glamping tents and things like that.
No,
right?
None of that.
Okay.
Yeah. No,
that's
not our. Yeah, there's actually a guy down the road from us doing those tiny home things. It's impressive to see him come in. He's like the third one that's coming in the same location. It's really weird, but they move, man. It's a weird thing. And I had some friends that bought a tiny home, and they started by looking at RV floor plans. They came to our Houston RV show, and they just walked around and looked at all the floor plans, and that gave them the ideas on how to customize their tiny home. It's like, well, heck, if I can help with that, I'll help with that, sure. But I think that's what some of these people want to do. They want to live in those things. They want to be able to put them wherever they want, and that's a little bit nicer than an RV. You can customize them. Some of them, you can totally customize them. Obviously, they look good on the outside. It's not just a regular white RV with weird decals on it, which is what most of RVs are. So it's more customizable, in my opinion, for those tiny home things. I'm not against them. I know a lot of RV dealers are, but where they fall is what's happening in how banks and what they are considered in technical terms is what's happening.
That's the issue, because in Canada, it has to be to a specific RV standard if it's an RV, and if they're built like a house,
then they should on the road
a house standard. So that's kind of where do they fall. I know our Standards Council of Canada is looking at having a specific standard for them so that it's separate from RV and park model. So that
I think people actually think tiny homes are going to be on the road as much as an RV, and I think that's where the trouble comes in. Yeah, right.
They want them on wheels, right? They want to avoid the lodging tax in the States. So that's why they want them on wheels down in the States.
Yeah. Well, it opens up the other thing, because people have been living in these now, and that's the banks haven't considered these livable, right? So they won't, technically, if some of these banks, if you have a loan, you're in default if you live in it, right?
Yeah.
Same with the manufacturer warranty. Forest River just kicked that out of their warranty finally, like 2 years ago, where if you lived in it, your warranty was void, right? So they finally changed all that. We're finally adapting to people living in these. COVID has really changed that, because they realized, there was a certain number of people, like, our business went up 50, 75%. 20% of those were people working in these things, just 100% remote jobs now. My wife has got a 100% remote job now. That's just how these things went. These banks are starting to understand that these people live in them. That's how we got deemed an essential business in Texas, was because people live in them and they need to work on them. And then, lucky we were able to sell them too. But it's all evolving to where people realize this is what's happening. So now it's not COVID and jobs that's spurring it. It's cashing out on your home in our housing market right now, because it's your house has gone up to $200,000 in value. Well, a lot of people just don't want to watch that go by. They're going to cash out right now while it's hot, live in an RV until the housing market comes back or interest rates go back down, or however they want to look at whatever they're dealing with, and then they'll get a house, or they'll go buy land and put the RV on the land. But that's what I've seen a lot lately, is people just cashing out on their homes and buying RVs and paying cash for them too. That's the other thing that's kind of frustrating, because we want you to finance, but so it's been an interesting kind of segue into things. So
we've only got a couple minutes left, and I want to make sure I leave time for David to give his pitch to anybody who maybe for whatever reason still isn't registered for ARVC and should be coming. But before I do that, can I just I'm curious, and this is I'm trying to go for 3 dumb questions in one show, so you can tell me if this is dumb too. I'm curious, like, as the market, you mentioned that dealer down the street from you who's selling, tiny homes, and I know that the difference and all the arguments and things like that. But as far as cabins and glamping and stuff, is there ever a point where some dealers diversify their inventory to kind of suit more of a expansive outdoor hospitality market as glamping continues to explode?
Yeah, when the demand,
you want consumers looking at these tents and convincing the campground owners or campgrounders to come to your dealership and buy from you, or is that
when the demand hits it, when people start asking me, I'll start selling it. That's been our philosophy here. I can't speak for other dealers, but here, Dad always told me one thing. Growing up, I learned it was everything's for sale and we don't say no. So it's whatever the market demands. If they still want pop-ups, we're gonna have pop-ups. If they want tiny homes and that's what they want me to sell, I'll figure out a way to get them and sell them. I'm all inclusive here. I'm not against it. The regulation side of things is a totally different aspect. That's why I like being on the boards, and I got to play both hats. I got to do it. So it's I can see both sides of it. I see what the people want. They want what they want. They want to customize it. They want to, have everything where they want it. I understand that 100%. And manufacturers of RVs are not going to do that for them. They have cookie cutter floor plans, and they're not going to go off of that. You have to wait for the new floor plan, and maybe you might like it. But no, I understand that that's where this industry is going. There will be a manufacturer that's coming out that will say, hey, I'll customize something for you in an RV setting, and people are going to love it for the first, how many ever long it lasts, a little flash in the pan, and then we'll see how long it goes from there. But yes, it is going to go to that. Yes, we will have to eventually do something of that nature, but it's just not big enough yet for us. So
I think it would be fascinating, David, and I'm curious what you think of this. Like, we go to the glamping show, we go to ARVC, we go to KOA, and you see the people who set up their park models and cabins and glamping units, and for people to walk through at those shows. Is there a point, if glamping gets big enough, David, where like it makes sense to have like a Denver glamping dealer where they have 20 or 30 of these different tents where campground owners who have a campground in Colorado, for example, just kind of can converge and walk through these whenever they want? Does that ever make sense?
I don't know. I mean, we live in a capitalist society. If somebody wants to open up that business, go for it.
I mean, it just seems interesting to me. Like, I know there's a limited number of campgrounds in Colorado. Maybe it probably doesn't make sense from a scale standpoint, but I don't know.
Yeah,
interesting.
It's an interesting concept.
All right, David, we're almost we are out of time, but so if anybody needs to leave, please, Larry or Eleanor, go for it.
I'm okay.
David, if you want to give for anybody who's sitting on the fence here or isn't sure that they want to come to a warm area of the country and attend educational sessions and see people at expos, what's your pitch to get somebody to come?
Who doesn't want to go to warm weather in November? No, my very simple pitch would be not only the warm weather, but also, like we've talked about, the fun, and to tie in what you and Larry were just talking about. The keyword I picked up on was market demand. I think going to shows, whether you're a campground going to OHCE or a dealer going to RVDA, it's all about learning the market demand for the next year. What's it going to be? What's the next new thing that I'm going to need to implement in my business? What do I need to be thinking about long term? All of these things that you don't really think too much about maybe during the hustle and bustle of the season. But going to a conference like OHCE or the RVDA allows you to have some fun and network with people and get those ideas that are going to make your business even better the next year. So
where do they go to register? Where do they go to register for OHCE? And then Eleanor, same question, if there's anybody who's watching that needs to attend RVDA still.
Yeah, very easy. OHCE registration is at arvc.org/OHCE.
Yep. And for RVDA, it's rvda.org/convention.
Awesome. Both super easy to remember. I'm glad because I don't have time to type it in. We're almost out of time. So thank you guys. I really appreciate you joining us. Once again, I want to thank our show sponsor, CampSpot, here for being a sponsor of this fourth week every single month. Super grateful for them and looking forward to seeing them as an expo sponsor, ARVC 2. So thank you guys for joining us. Really appreciate it. Remember, next week is our open discussion show. We've got our regular guests, Randy Hendrickson on, Scott Foos, a bunch of other people. So looking forward to that show as well. And until then, we'll see you all next week. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for the invite. See ya.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks for watching this episode of MC Fireside Chats, hosted by Brian Searl and Cara Csizmadia. Have a suggestion for a future show or want to see your campground or company as part of an episode? Email us at hello@moderncampground.com. Join us next week for another episode. And don't miss the latest outdoor hospitality news and commentary from around the world at moderncampground.com.